Well, for more on this, let's bring in Miles Taylor, former DHS Chief of Staff, co-founder of the Renew America movement, and author of A Warning. Miles, welcome to you. Do you agree there with Jim Jordan? I mean, my curious question here for you is, did you not hear anything new there as a former member of the Trump administration? Nothing new?
Well, look, Alex, the hearing, the first hearing alone was shocking, and it absolutely did have new information. I think it was really, in fact, a lot more impressive and a lot more shocking than a lot of us had anticipated. I think folks had worried that there'd been so many leaks from the Select Committee that it really wasn't going to make much of an impression. The committee proved a lot of us wrong in going in with that presumption with a very powerful hearing. And Jim Jordan's comment about not being able to have Republicans cross-examine witnesses ignores the fact that there are Republican members of Congress on this committee, and there were former Republican members of Congress even on the staff of the committee, like Denver Riggleman. So it just doesn't pass the smell test. It is a bipartisan committee. And again, you go back to one of the leading presenters in the hearing was Liz Cheney, one of the most rock-ribbed conservatives in the House of Representatives. And that side-by-side moment of the daughter of a former Republican vice president and, again, a major conservative in her own right saying that a Republican president of the United States had attempted a coup was absolutely shocking, and it was very, very powerful.
And also saying that Donald Trump will go one day, but the Republicans are going to have to live with their actions and what they have put forward and basically the lies that they have perpetuated. Let me ask you about the tweet that you shared just a few days ago. Expand on that for us if you can. Who participated in the conversations you were tweeting about, the ones that you witnessed, and was it anybody that has testified or who we can expect to testify coming up?
Well, look, some of the people that are familiar with this have testified before the Select Committee behind closed doors. But let me step back in time. What I made clear publicly is that for many years, well before the 2020 election, Donald Trump was talking about a certain power, the Insurrection Act. And early in his presidency, he was very disappointed to find out that the U.S. Commander-in-Chief does not have unlimited power. Now, I don't say that hyperbolically. In fact, many of his cabinet secretaries at the time conveyed Donald Trump's frustration on his behalf that he realized he didn't have the ultimate power that he thought he would once in office. His lawyers briefed him on something at the White House called the Insurrection Act and explained to the president that in certain scenarios, when there's an insurrection against the United States, it unlocks additional powers. And if the president invokes that act, he can deploy the military to undertake civilian law enforcement. This would informally be called martial law. Donald Trump keyed in on that early in the administration. And frankly, a lot of times when he would run into a problem where he was told, you don't have the power to do this, he would invoke his, quote, magical powers, as he called them, and he would reference the Insurrection Act. So often he would bring this up when he talked about border security. So when the president would meet with advisors who would say he wasn't able to fully shut down the border, no, they couldn't turn away asylum seekers, and he would cite the Insurrection Act. And his advisors took those cues, because I remember us getting phone calls from Trump's senior advisors saying, is this a moment or is that a moment in which the president could invoke the Insurrection Act? It was chilling then. It was especially chilling after the 2020 election, when it seemed like Trump was trying to foment a situation in which he could invoke the Insurrection Act. And I firmly believe on January 6th, that was his mindset. His mindset was if he could foment a mob, he might be able to invoke that power, deploy the military, and prevent the peaceful transition of power. That sounds crazy, but keep in mind, Liz Cheney opened the hearing the other day by saying this was a man who lost in 2020, knew he lost, and attempted a political coup on January 6th.
Absolutely stunning. I wish I could have seen your face when you were hearing these words about magical powers and what all you thought. Let me ask you about the threats to quit by Trump's legal team, his counsel there, during the weeks leading up to the insurrection. They were pretty much dismissed from officials like Jared Kushner. He testified that, you know, he considered the threats to be, quote, just whining. So were the musings from Trump met with similar dismissal with others? I mean, what was the reaction from officials who heard the former president discuss this?
Well, look, I hope that in the aftermath of the 2020 election that there were frequent protests in front of Donald Trump to quit. But I don't need to make that supposition, because those same lawyers that were talked about in the hearing Pat Cipollone, who was the White House counsel. I've sat in the Oval Office with Pat while he pushed back against the president and repeatedly told him what he could and could not do. Now, there's a question, should these people have resigned or should they have stayed? I actually think in this case, it's good that some of those people stayed and told the president he could not do what he thought he could do. But it's not shocking at all to me. And in fact, it seems very consistent with Trump's normal behavior to propose something that was unethical, immoral, or more likely illegal, and then to have the lawyers come right to the goal line and say, you cannot do this. So for Jared to say that the lawyers were merely whining is so dismissive and shocking, especially because I've been there when Jared's been in the office and has depended on the lawyers to stop Trump from doing something egregious.
Yeah, it is pretty stunning when you put it like that. Miles Taylor, it's always good to talk with you and get your insights. Thank you.